Hey, JJ back here again, and been talking a lot about favorite musicians and albums today, so I thought I'd switch gears and actually talk about something drumming related for a change. You know, drum channel and YouTube and all. So I did a previous video where I talked about kind of drumsticks in general, and my thoughts and brands I've tried, things I've used, and stuff like that. But I thought today I'd talk about a particular brand that I used for many years on and off. Use them for a long time, go to something else, come back to them. It's one of those kind of a love affair with them, and they come in and out of my life at different times, and just trying something new, whatever the case is. But I haven't seen a ton of videos on these sticks with people kind of giving thoughts on them. I know they're popular, but I just thought I'd give them a bit of a shout out because I've been keeping a set of these sticks in my drumstick repertoire for close to 30 years now. And while I don't use them all the time, I definitely keep coming back to them at certain points and at certain times, and it's just one of those things. It's like there's just times I feel like using them and times I feel like trying something else. And so for those unfamiliar, these are the head drumsticks, and I have a real tendency to still call these the Easton head drumsticks because I've been using these things so long that when I first got my very first pair, they were still made by Easton, the baseball bat company. And I don't know if they're still involved or not, but they've dropped the Easton part from the naming structure, and so now it's just a head drumsticks. So if you're a drummer, I'm sure you're probably familiar with these. There's enough guys kind of using them these days, but I remember seeing these back in a copy of Modern Drummer. And it would have been from probably 1994 or maybe like 1995. I hadn't really gotten a subscription to Modern Drummer yet, but I was perusing it at a local magazine shop. And so I would leaf through them and I would just look at everything and take it all in. And I remember seeing early advertisements for these drumsticks. And the two artists that I had first seen using them were Matt Sorum from Guns N' Roses, who had been kind of an early adopter of this brand, and I'd seen him using them on the towards the end, I think, of the Use Your Illusion tour from Guns N' Roses. There's videos of him using the Easton, the head sticks, and the other one was Tommy Lee. And Tommy Lee had been a Vic Firth endorser for many years, and so seeing him switch to the head sticks was kind of interesting. And so I would see them, but they weren't being widely used at that time. And I thought they were almost kind of like a gimmick or something like that. Like not that they had been touted as being unbreakable, but it felt gimmicky at the time. And so they were always in kind of the back of my mind. And then summer of 1995, Metallica is, taking over the world at that point. They were my favorite band. And, I had the same drumsticks as Lars. Those are what I grew up playing. So like a 5B nylon tip. And all of a sudden I see some concert footage of Metallica, and I see Lars has started using these sticks. And so being an impressionable teenager at the time, I thought, well, if my favorite drummer is using them, maybe it's time I could give them a try. And so likely the end of 1995, maybe for Christmas 1995, I think I had asked for a pair of the 5B, as that's what I was using in a wood stick, and I thought it would be an easy transition, whatever. And at that time, I still really didn't understand the idea of what these sticks were. And, I thought they were just like, they would get worn out and you'd throw them away. And, at the time, they were about 3 times more than a pair of regular drumsticks. And I thought the idea was that they would just get worn out, but they would never break. And so you were paying for the extra durability. And at that time, I was a young player and just hammering on everything and anything, and pretty poor technique at that point. So it was a lot of just, Dave Grohl is one of my favorite, and just the way those guys played, I was just going through stuff. And I thought, well, if the sticks last a little bit longer than the ones I'd been currently using, then I'd be saving money in the long run, was the idea. So I get the sticks, and I had a little practice pad at home, and I would practice on pillows and on pad and stuff. And when I started using these sticks, I realized that there was quite a bit of difference in how they felt. And they advertised as having more rebound. And I think that actually is true. There's, maybe I couldn't tell you the physics behind it, but just the response of the aluminum that's inside here, it definitely gives more of a rebound on a hard surface. Whether it equates on a kind of a loose-headed floor tom or not, I don't really know. But on a practice pad, I could definitely feel that there was a lot more of a bounce back. And in practicing with these sticks, it actually kind of made me focus a bit more on finger control, especially with the pinky. I used to kind of play with the pinky really loose, and then as I started using these sticks in the rebound, the pinky kind of came more into play as controlling the rebound of the stick. So using them for a little while, just kind of in a practice routine, actually kind of helped my technique in some ways, without really getting into practicing the technique. It was just it was a matter of having to do it more or less to control the stick. So from 1990, end of 1995, pretty much up until I want to say the year 2000, maybe 2001, these were the only sticks I used. I had learned early on that not unbreakable by any means. I went through these things until I learned what was happening, and then I remedied it. What I had was one of my old snare drums back there was the only snare I had at the time, and it had very dense die-cast hoops. And my playing has always been rim shots or nothing, more or less. I've always liked to have the sound and of a rim shot, and it fills the space, and it sounds good to me. And I was always playing music that it was appropriate to play a lot of rim shots, anyways. And so I learned early on, and I can't say whether it was just, I don't know if the manufacturing has changed or anything with these drumsticks, but at the time, they just could not stand a rim shot. And, I was coming from the ceiling sometimes with these things. And, I watched Lars play with them, and he was hitting like that, and I thought they could take it. And I was just inevitably always breaking them right where the rim shots would hit. The sleeves would be kind of intact and everything was fine, but just the rim shot was just breaking them. A slight adjustment in the angle of my snare, and just a couple of adjustments in the technique. Eventually I learned, how to not break them. And since then, I might have had these particular ones. They've got a good amount of use, and I've probably had these sticks for about 10 years. Replaced the covers a bunch of times, and but the sticks are still intact, and so with a few adjustments you can get around that. And it was hurting the pocketbook breaking that many too, so it helped when I learned not what to do. So used the head sticks pretty much right up until 2001, and then I had a little bit of a lapse in practice, and then eventually got kind of into playing bands and stuff like that again around 2003. And by that time, the head sticks had kind of become much more popular, and there was quite a few more drummers using them. One of my favorite drummers at that time was a drummer from the band Mudvayne named Matt McDonough, and he had a signature stick from a head. And at one point, Joey from Slipknot was also using a head stick. So two of my new favorite drummers had kind of come along at the right time for me to see them. And, I had gone back to playing wood sticks just to try them out again. And, pretty much always sticking with a 5B, but different brands. But I was kind of reinvigorated, re-energized when I saw Joey and Matt playing with a head stick. So I thought, yeah, I'm gonna come back to these sticks and play with them again. And at that time, those guys were both playing essentially the equivalent to a 7A. So I went down from a 5B version of this stick down to playing a 7A, and experimented with some of the different tips that they had, just different things like that. Another drummer I completely just forgot and now just remembered was using them. That was a big influence of mine was David Silveria. David Silveria from Korn was using the head sticks for a short time as well. I should give him a shout out. One of the early kind of unknown endorsers or the forgotten endorsers of a head. And but yeah, so I jumped down to a 7A stick, and the thought process behind that was like I was playing a lot of faster material. I was really getting into like black metal, and I thought a smaller stick I would just be able to play faster. It's lighter, shorter as well. So I made a few adjustments to my setup and started using those sticks. But the issue with the 7A is that they had the diameter of the wall of the aluminum in the stick is it's a few millimeters different, but those few millimeters were enough where I could no longer sustain any of the rim shots that I was playing. I even switched over to a snare that had triple flanged hoops, so it was much less dense material, a lot more give in the triple flanged hoops, and that wasn't even able to remedy the amount of breakage that I was going through. So I tried to stick it out with the smaller sticks for about a year or two, and eventually relented and went back to a 5B. And the 5Bs have always really, really served me well. So yeah, I've used them kind of exclusively again up until maybe about 2008. And at that time, I wasn't playing a ton of live shows. And, it was just very sporadic kind of in my bands and participation. And so just practicing at home and on a pad and stuff. So, but once I did get into a band that was playing out more and we were practicing more, it just got to be a matter of I didn't want to buy a lot of these and bring them with me. And sometimes people would ask for sticks and I could never give these away. They're just, too expensive. And so I ended up going back to using a wood stick again, and then got comfortable with wood sticks, and just because I was playing so much with them, just got tuned into using a wood stick again. And so the head sticks kind of took a back seat for quite a while. I would say there's probably about from 2008 till maybe 2013 or 14. I don't even know if I ever used these again, and so they were always on my mind to use them, but it just never came up, and so I didn't. And so after I kind of stopped playing a lot live and just kind of having sporadic shows and things like that, I started introducing these back in. And so since about 2016, since I've had a studio at home where I could play and things like that, a kit that doesn't really leave, I've kind of introduced these back into to playing as well. And it's always really interesting to go back and forth between the wood sticks and these, because there is an adjustment period. Whether it's sitting at a V drum set or a practice pad or whatever, there is a definite difference in how these sticks feel. And I remember reading in Modern Drummer an article with Lars talking about the fact that in the studio, when they were making the Load album, that the cymbals sounded different when he was using these sticks, the head sticks. And so he would actually have a wood stick in his right hand and a head stick in his left hand. And I would actually agree with that. It sounds like it might be silly, but the density difference and the hardness of like a hickory stick actually opens up the cymbals, in my opinion, quite a bit more. And I've heard it on recordings that I've done, and I can even hear it in the practice room. Certain cymbals, it's definitely more obvious than others. Thick cymbals, especially like, like a power crash or something that's a bit heavier. It just needs like a bit more of an impact to kind of open it up. And the sleeve on the head stick is, it's meant to kind of preserve your gear and not kind of break things. I understand all that, but at the same time, it definitely has a different sound. It's not so much through the drums itself, but I definitely hear it on the cymbals. So if you're thinking about switching over or giving these a try, if recording is on your horizon, that's definitely something to keep in mind. But that being said, the last a few months I've been practicing with them more and reintegrating them. And a friend of mine, another drummer, is an endorsee of Ahead, and him and I had a couple conversations about the sticks, and it kind of piqued my interest again, and coming back and giving them another whirl. And it's just it's great to be able to experiment with gear and to come back and and try these things out. And I'm very happy with these sticks. And but yeah, there's a couple things that are kind of left to be desired. The not that I play a lot of cross stick or things like that, but the cross stick has it's kind of a weak sounding cross stick. It's just they're not dense enough to really get that kind of sharp attack that you want from that. And the other big thing being the cymbals. But for some reason, when it comes to playing double strokes and bouncing paradiddles, things like that, I find I can with the rebound on these sticks, there's just I can feel it, where it just has that kind of a bounce and a give and like a springboard effect, like a diving board almost. And so I'd be curious to see if there is kind of like a slow motion camera, if it could ever be filmed. I'd be curious to see if there's any kind of like a flex into the stick when it is doing that. If you've ever watched any slow motion video of a cymbal, when it vibrates, you can see just how much movement there is in a cymbal when it's really brought down. So I'd be curious to see if these drumsticks actually have any of that as well, like that diving board, springboard effect to them, where a really dense, like a hickory drumstick may not have nearly as much flex to it. But yeah, there's like with any piece of gear, and there's trade-offs and there's benefits, and there's all kinds of things that go along with that. But yeah, I just thought I'd give some thought specifically to these sticks. I'm going to start incorporating them into to some of my videos again too, and just get familiar with them again. And it's always fun to kind of go back and revisit old gear I haven't used for a while, and see how things feel as I get older. The gear doesn't change, but I get older, so the change is me. But we'll see how things go with these. So if you haven't checked them out, they're a bit expensive to get into, but give them a try. That's all you can do. Give things a try and see if it works for you. There's a lot of drummers that swear by these things. For me, one of the downfalls of them is that the handle that's integrated into them is made from aluminum, and it has a texture, but I don't know what it is. My hands tend to run dry. I have dry hands, and even with wood sticks, I have to apply a bit of a tacky kind of a stick wax to really increase the grip. So the one downfall with these sticks is that I do have to wrap them with tape, and it just never seems to last. Like I go through, a roll of this tape. If I play for a few hours, the tape is pretty much demolished. So the one caveat of these sticks is that there is a cost associated if you do have to wrap them. You could use other materials to wrap them. You don't have to use the one specifically from Ahead, which is kind of like a tennis racket wrap, more or less. But there's stick tapes. There's other things you can use as well too if you're not interested in doing that. But give them a try. They're a great product, and I've been a long time user of them, and they're a interesting alternative to wood sticks. And if you are having issues with any kind of one of the claims to these sticks was that they reduce fatigue and the wear and tear, and if you have issues with tendonitis, it's supposed to be helpful with that. I haven't had any experience with that, luckily. Knock on wood. Where's wood? yeah, I'm injury free in all the drumming that I've done. But if you are experiencing anything like that, these could be maybe a helpful alternative to using wood sticks. So this has been the one about head drumsticks. Check them out if you haven't. Cheers.